Hey guys, it's Dave Defisher, and today I'm back with another Soulsborne ranking video, and in today's video we're going to be ranking my top 5 favourite bosses from Elden Ring. As always, this is just my own personal opinion, you don't have to agree, but feel free to, stay calm and voice your own top 5 in the comment section down below. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, that'd be great. Now let's get on to the ranking. Taking the number 5 spot, we have General Radahn, and I really like this guy mainly due to the build-up behind him. You learn of the Radahn Festival pretty much, as soon as you explore Limgrave when you meet Alexander. You meet a few more NPCs throughout the game, and then you all collaborate in, the area in Caelid to actually take on Radahn himself. The whole boss fight itself feels like one big event, and when you actually get round to taking on Radahn, it feels like one. You summon all of those enemies, all those NPCs rather, you charge towards him whilst he pelts you with, the equivalent of soul spears and just arrow barrages. It truly is a spectacular experience that I never will forget. And how is the fight itself? Well, in terms of the, phase 1, it's actually pretty unique. He fights you on horseback, but obviously he's massive compared to the horse, so he is very mobile for such a massive foe, hits you incredibly hard, probably the hardest boss in the early game to be honest, and whilst his attacks are manageable to an extent, obviously they hit you extremely hard, so you've got to watch out for them. Once you take him to around 50% health, the guy jumps up into the air and comes rocketing down to the earth in a massive fireball like a collapsing star and begins phase 2, and this is where he starts incorporating gravity magic into the fight, which makes things a little bit more tricky as you have a bit more things to balance. And whilst his gravity spells are slow and easily telegraphed for the most part, they do hit extremely hard, and you have like the homing soul mass where it adds a bit more unpredictability to the fight as you never know when he's going to use it. Realistically, General Radahn is a massive spectacle. He is everything I love in an Elden Ring boss. He is massive, he's powerful, however he's not bullshit in terms of difficulty. He will challenge you, and he demands a lot of attention from the player. He has quite a lot of counter ability, which I do appreciate, and realistically he is a fun fight that pretty much everyone likes even after he was nerfed. The number 4 spot goes to Radagon of the Golden Order, and to be honest, I used to think this guy was a bit overrated, as by the time I got to the the end game in Elden Ring, I was a bit burned out of the humanoid opponents, just the dudes with weapons kind of archetype of a boss. However, Radagon was a phenomenal breath of fresh air. Not only does he hit incredibly hard and he's very agile as you'd expect from an endgame, Elden Ring boss, but just everything about this fight and this encounter is beautiful. With his various holy based AoEs onto his attacks, he has, range projectiles, he can teleport. He really does do everything he can to keep you on your toes, which I really do like. However, at no point during the boss does he feel bullshit. I felt that some fights like Malekith being a big example were just too fast for their own good, and it bordered on being bullshit. However, this guy has a teleport built into his kit, and it never feels bullshit throughout the fight. It feels like you can counter him, it feels like he can counter you. It really does feel like a triumphant climax to the end of your journey. However, I do kind of wish that this guy got a rework. I think that if they got rid of the Elden Beast and, gave this guy a proper phase 2, or at the very least incorporated the Elden Beast into the phase 2 somehow, I think that this guy would easily be the best final boss in the series. But as it stands, he's still probably in my top 5 favorite final bosses in the series, but he just misses the mark, unfortunately. Phenomenal boss, however, he definitely could have been better. Taking the number 3 spot is what many people regard as the hardest boss in Elden Ring. We have Melania, Blade of Mikola, and Goddess of Rot. And I'm just going to say this right now, she is nowhere near the hardest boss in the game for me, and she is very overrated in terms of difficulty. Don't get me wrong, she is still top 3, I would say, in terms of being most difficult in the game. However, there's a few that are more difficult than her for me personally. So why is she difficult and why is she a good boss? Well, first of all, she can heal herself every time she lands a hit, which puts more pressure on you than pretty much any boss in the series. As not only have you got to, find opportunities to heal, but she's also undoing all of your efforts every time she lands a hit, which is pretty problematic. And she has some of the most bullshit attacks, such as Waterfowl Dance, where she spins like fucking crazy. In the second phase, she incorporates her full goddess persona with her Scarlet Rot abilities, Scarlet Bloom, etc. She is a really aggressive impressive fight, and she is one of the hardest in the game. However, at no point did she feel bullshit. You know, she has very low poise, you can stagger her without much issue, you can bring a, you know, a summon to the fight and completely cheese her. She's very weak to bleed and fire, so you can exploit those weaknesses. I think that she's very difficult, however, she's also a very fun and balanced fight. Also, does anyone else find it funny that Radahn was nerfed yet Malenia wasn't? I mean, I know that she's not the hardest boss in the game for me, but like, literally the amount of people that complained about her difficulty was hilarious, and it makes me smile even to this day that Radahn was hit with a nerf, but not Malenia. Overall, she's a really fun encounter, very difficult, and she reminds me of, you know, Lady Maria and Sister Fried, you know, bosses that are just incredibly fast, however frail to an extent, and she comes in at the number 3 spot. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, 100% deserves the number 2 spot, and is a very underrated boss in my opinion. Most people tend to criticize this guy for being far too easy, being like a gimmick-based boss. However, I would have to disagree, as, you know, if you want to make Rykard harder, just fight him without the Serpent Hunter. You know, just do that and tell me how that goes. He instantly goes from a moderately challenged fight to easily the hardest in the game, you know? The Serpent Hunter is essentially required for this boss fight. I don't need to explain this to you. He's essentially the Yhorm, or, you know, the Storm King of Elden Ring, and I think that he is easily the best gimmick-based boss to date. Now, why is he my second favorite fight? Well, in terms of difficulty, I think he's honestly spot on. You know, the Serpent itself hits very hard, however, he's not that fast. However, he can also incorporate poison into his attacks, which, you know, you gotta watch out for. You yourself can do a shit ton of damage in return to him, which I think helps balance out the crazy encounter. You can use, you know, the Serpent Hunter's Ash of War for pretty much a guaranteed stagger, which I think is very useful if you're finding the fight a little bit difficult. However, then phase 2 begins, and seriously, what the fuck is going on? Like, phase 2 hits so hard, man. Like, literally, he summons like all of these skulls to rain down on you, and it's just such a cool spectacle. Coupled with one of the best soundtracks in the game, Rykard's second phase is just a masterpiece. I think it's one of the coolest. Like, seriously, look at that. That shit is beyond cool. Now, obviously, yes, he is not the hardest fight in the game, nowhere near. I think that some attacks, to an extent, are very easy to dodge, even though they hit really hard. I think that he is on the easier side of things. However, I don't really care, because everything about this fight, to be honest, is perfect. You know, he can pose a massive threat to you, but you also pose a massive threat to him, having a weapon that is essentially this guy's kryptonite. And, you know, I think that he's just a phenomenal boss in every single way. Other than that, though, I don't have much to say about this guy. I just think he's a really fun, balanced fight, and whilst he isn't, you know, the most challenging in the world, you can make it challenging. Simply fight him without the Serpent Hunter, and bam, you've instantly got, you know, the hardest boss in the game. Really fun fight, and deserving of being on the list for sure. Yeah, if you guys watched my recent Elden Ring stream, it should come as no surprise that this guy is my favorite boss in the game. However, I'm gonna try not fanboy over him and be as objective as I can. Realistically, Dragonlord Placidusax is the most perfectly challenged boss in Elden Ring. Now, he is an endgame boss, so obviously he hits incredibly hard. In fact, this guy has one of the biggest health bars in the game, and the most powerful attack in the game, with that being his lasers in the second phase. Yet despite all of this, he never once feels bullshit. His lightning hits hard, however, it's also incredibly telegraphed, meaning that if you pay attention, it will never be a threat to you. He has multiple ways that he can spew his fire breath. You know, he can spew it in front of him or even behind him. However, he also gives you a few seconds to react, which helps, you know, balance out, you know, the crazy damage that the fire itself deals. Not to mention, this guy's a fucking two-headed dragon. Like, that shit is just beyond cool, and to be honest, I'm surprised it took them literally as long as it did to create, you know, a two-headed dragon. Realistically, this guy is a massive spectacle as well, which I do like in my Elden Ring bosses. But man, if you want to talk about spectacle, look no further than the second phase. The motherfucker literally enters phase 2 by turning into a fucking cloud and then just yeeting himself at you at Mach 10. just immediately blitzes you and begins the second phase, where things do get a lot more challenging, but again, it never feels bullshit. You know, the dragon essentially incorporates moves from Lothric and Lorien, where, you know, he will teleport and pull a fast one on you, and you've got to keep an eye on the dragon's movements, which I think is quite cool. And then, of course, there's his infamous laser attack, where, seriously, what the fuck is going on? He's just spamming lightning. His fire turns into, you know, Shin Godzilla's beams, where he just doesn't give a shit. He's raining down all sorts of pain and destruction on you. However, again, it's just cool. You know, it's difficult for sure. You know, this guy is an endurance battle. You know, if you're not careful, you will lose the arms race against this guy's ginormous health bar, and he will kill you. But again, as long as you're paying attention, this guy is one of the best fights in the game, no doubt in my mind. Also, remember how Dragon Lord Placidusax can do this?